and welcome to Your Coaching Journey, a podcast for doctors about coaching. Whether you're a coaching doctor, a doctor who is learning to coach, or a doctor who'd like to build coaching into your professional life, then this is the podcast for you. Hello, I'm Tom Dillon, and with me today is my co-host and business partner, Helen Leathers. Hi Helen, how are you today?
Hi Tom, I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I was just thinking, last time I think I forgot to ask you how you were at the beginning, which we always do. So apologies for that.
Oh, that's all right.
Not to worry. So today, what are we giving thought to?
Today we have questions from our listeners that have been sent in. So let's have a quick look at our first question, which is from Juliet, who's a radiologist and a coach, and she has the following question. The head of department of someone that she's coaching in her organisation has asked her how the coaching's going, and she's wondering how much she can divulge to them.
Ooh, interesting question.
Yes.
Yep. And in answer, nothing really. That's coaching is a confidential activity, and we need to respect that confidentiality. So in my coaching within organisations, I wouldn't even be talking to anyone about the fact that I'm actually coaching.
They wouldn't even know.
Let alone, well, they might know from another source.
Yes.
So the coachee might have told them, but I won't be discussing it.
Or I suppose if it was part of their development plan to have coaching,
yes,
their head of department might know.
Yes, but if it's just some random head of department that has nothing to do with the coaching contract, then I wouldn't be discussing it with them. And just, it would be that I can neither confirm nor deny.
No comment.
Yes, it is that sort of, well, I can't discuss my coaching with anyone. It's a confidential activity. And I think just leaving it at that. So I think it's obviously what goes on in the coaching. We always give that assurance to our coachees that it is a confidential space and anything they bring up is not going to be discussed elsewhere. But I think the fact that they're having coaching is something that doesn't need to be broadcast to anyone else. So for me, the coaching is confidential. I'm not going to be discussing it with anyone else. I will just make that assertion that my coaching is confidential and I can't discuss it with anyone else. Now, if they have been involved at the outset in the coaching setup, so if they've been part of the contracting, then obviously I might, if they say, how's it going? I might say, very well, thank you. Thank you for inquiring, but it's confidential, so I can't discuss it with you. So if they are aware of it, because it's been a three-way contracting and they've been part of the contracting, then just to say, yeah, it's fine, thank you. The coaching is happening. And I think leaving it at that is probably enough. You might get a bit of pushback from whoever it is you're talking to, but I think holding your ground and just feeling secure in that confidentiality is a good place to be.
I think we're both in agreement that our version of three-way contracting is we won't be divulging anything to the manager or head of department of the person we're coaching.
Yeah.
And that's that.
Yeah. And we will obviously have a conversation, another three-way conversation after the coaching has taken place or whilst the coaching contract is happening. So we might, after a couple of sessions, go back and talk to whoever has sponsored the coaching and allow the coachee to talk about what's going on in the coaching room and how it's working for them. But for us, we're not divulging that. We might sit in on the conversation, but it's not for us to divulge what the coachee is saying in that space.
Brilliant. So, Juliet, hopefully that answers your question and it ensures that your coachee feels comfortable to talk about anything they want in the coaching room, knowing it won't go any further. Yeah,
and it is funny. I had a coachee not so long ago who, when I asked him about a colleague of his, what was happening with him, he said, "Oh, can you keep a secret?" And I said, "Well, I've assured you that everything you say to me is confidential. So yes, I can." And actually, it's quite a privilege to be told things that aren't more generally being discussed. And that to me is one of those sacred things within coaching, that confidentiality that we hold.
Great.
Good. Shall we move on and to a different question? So I have one for you. So James, who's a GP and a new coach, asks, a client has booked a program of 4 sessions with me and we're coming up to the last one. I'd quite like to keep working with him. So how do I bring that up in the conversation?
Brilliant question. And first of all, well done, James, for booking 4 sessions. Many coaches book session by session. So to have a program or a block book is great. You've mentioned that you'd quite like to keep working with him, and that's great. What we obviously need to establish is, does he want to keep working with you? And,
that's an important element of it, isn't it?
And that's not to say he, doesn't value your time together, but you really need to establish, does he want that relationship to continue? So personally, if I was looking at 4 sessions, I'd have broached this subject in session 3. But if you're going into session 4, that's absolutely fine. I would start that session reflecting and asking reflective questions of their journey through the program that you've been working on together. So, saying, so Tom, when we first started working together in our first coaching session, the goal was this, or your intention was this. How do you feel your journey has been using the coaching? And to get that reflection from your client as to how effective that coaching has been. And I would simply say, perhaps towards the end of the session then, so, our contract was for 4 sessions. This is our last one together. You seem to have come a long way. You seem to have benefited and found value in this time we've spent together. And I just wanted to let you know that there is the option to carry on working with me if that's something that you'd would like to do. And just judge that response and find out what they're thinking. And I think that's the simplest way. But I'd like to start that session with the reflection so that they've already got in their mind the value of the coaching and what they've achieved, whether they continue to work with you or not. Because if they continue to work with you, they've seen the value. If they decide that's enough for now, but they have still seen the value in working with you, then they'll recommend you to others, and also they'll come back at a later stage if they need some more time to think. That's my thoughts on it. Do you have anything that you want to add, Tom?
Yeah, I would probably, in the initial chemistry session, discovery call, whatever it is, talk about a program. I tend not to do programs, but I might have a set of sessions. So people might see that as a program. But so I might have 4 sessions booked with someone and have an idea of what it was that they wanted to discuss and think, well, let's book 4 sessions and see how it goes. But we've got that option of extending it if we need to. So actually bringing it up in that chemistry session, that it's not a defined, this is going to resolve it in 4 sessions. We've got some chance to extend it if we need to. Now, I know you also, in your coaching, have maintenance sessions that go beyond perhaps a program of coaching, and you might see people, well, tell us how you do that.
Yes, so typically I have a 12-session program. So around session 9 or 10, if it hasn't been brought up before, then I will mention to the client how many sessions we have left and just let them know that there is the option to carry on either with another program or with maintenance sessions. And I might say, reflect on this, think about it, come back and tell me what your thoughts are on it. But one of the options is to go from maybe fortnightly sessions to a monthly maintenance session, just to check in, to ensure that the changes, if there are changes that have been put in place, are still working, and if there's something that they want to revisit.
So it is very much that maintenance, isn't it? So if they've made changes perhaps to their lifestyle and they want to ensure that those changes are maintained, then you're there to support them in that.
Absolutely. And some people will just say, no, I'm good. Some people will tail off their coaching, so they'll go to monthly and then maybe every couple of months. Sometimes something might happen in their life and they contact me and say, oh my goodness, can I come back sooner? And some of my clients, I always leave that door open. So sometimes there are some clients that just message me and say, I know that I haven't seen you for a while, but actually I could do with one-off session because something's happened in my life, and they value that space for thinking, so they'll pop back.
Yeah, and I think there's an ethical side to this, isn't there? That we don't want to extend the coaching beyond its usefulness to the client, the coachee. So, I think we both act in a very ethical way that we support our coachees in whatever change they're trying to create. But beyond that, we recognise that they could be doing it for themselves.
Absolutely.
And we don't want to create a dependency on us so that they keep coming back. That's not what we're about. So we have to be careful that we don't create that dependency. Having said that, I have no problem with continuing to coach someone if they find it useful. So I have one coachee who I see once a quarter. I've been doing it for 9 years, and I just see him once a quarter for an hour and a half, and he has the opportunity to just say his thoughts out loud. Whatever's going on for him, he gets the chance to talk about it with someone who's not going to jump in and tell him what to do. So he really values that space. And it carries on, and we book the next session in for the next quarter, and he's happy to do that. And I don't feel that there's anything unethical about that. I think it's someone who really values the coaching space.
And likewise, I have someone that I've been coaching for a similar length of time, or about 7 years, I would say. And I did say to her recently, if this space is of value to you, that's fantastic. But if at any point it's no longer of value to you, please let me know.
Yeah, and I've got someone else that I see once a month at the moment, and have been for the last 8 months. And we actually had a conversation where he was talking about having to get rid of some consultants that he was paying a lot of money to. And he was struggling to have those conversations. And I did say to him, look, if ever you want to get rid of me, don't worry about having the conversation. Coaching is about empowering you to do what you want to do. So don't ever feel embarrassed or awkward about having that conversation. If the usefulness of the coaching is over, then we'll stop doing it.
Well, hopefully the usefulness of James' client's coaching isn't over, and he can continue to work beyond the 4 sessions if that's something that the client wants to do. I think don't put them on the spot and ask them to make a decision there or then, but do have that reflection and that time, and make a suggestion as to how you can continue working together. And hopefully they'll come back for more coaching, James.
Hopefully.
Excellent. So I have another question here, which is from Miranda, who's an A&E consultant. And Miranda asks, I've had some coachees recently that just didn't know the right answer. How do I help them in those circumstances?
Oh, that's interesting phrasing.
Interesting wording, yes.
Didn't know the right answer. And what is the right answer? And it sounds as though Miranda has an idea of what the right answer is. And I think that's sometimes problematic for coaches, that they will have an idea of what the right direction is for their coachee, and the coachee isn't coming up with it, and they feel, well, I know what the answer is, and they feel inclined to jump in and solve the problem for them, which might well be what Miranda is doing in those sessions. And I don't think that's unusual, to actually come up with a solution yourself. So I think the way to handle this is to stick with it, is to actually explore it in more detail with the coachee. They will have the answer within them. They will know what's best for their lives, and they will, if you explore it fully, they will come up with their answer.
And perhaps for Miranda to detach a little bit from the outcome of that conversation.
Yes. And I suppose there is an element of this that people don't know what they don't know. So they might be missing some information that might be useful. So within my coaching, I do a bit of psychoeducation where I will share a model with them. So the drama triangle, which comes from transactional analysis, is a model that I'll use just to frame the context of the situation. If it sounds like there's people involved, and I will draw out a drama triangle and ask the coachee, where do you think the people involved in this sit on this drama triangle? Now, there's some information that they hadn't had before, which might change their perspective, and the change of perspective might well give them the answer that they need. But I wouldn't be saying, I see you here and I see them there. Oh, and you need to do this because of this.
Yeah.
It's very much about sharing some information that might be useful, rather than saying, I think you should be doing this.
I'm wondering, though, if maybe, and this is a slightly different question and I'm perhaps reading into it, if maybe what Miranda's experiencing is the coachee saying, I don't know, which is a slightly different take on this. And it's actually come up recently with some people I've been working with, that their response from their coachee to a question was, I don't know. And that can be quite a difficult one to handle.
It can. So let's find out from you, Helen. How did you handle it when your coachees came up with it?
Well, when this happened to me, where a client said, I don't know, I just said nothing, which I know is a favourite response of yours.
Yeah.
And I just sat with it and didn't say or react at all. And it kind of went like this. I don't know. Oh, what about this? Actually, so the first thing I think we need to think about is I don't know is an immediate response to some questions, but it might be part of their thinking process. So a bit like someone going, oh, that's an interesting question, let me think about it. Someone else might say, oh, I don't know. But then they start to think about it. And if we jump in too soon, rephrase the question or panic, which I think some coaches might do, oh my goodness, I've asked the wrong question, or we stop their thinking. So we have to give them that space. The other thing that happened on exploration with someone that I was working with on this was that they were asking a quite complex question that was perhaps too much for the client to process. So we talked about making it an easier question for their situation.
Oh, so this is another coach that you were observing?
Yes.
That was asking a complicated...
multi-layered question. Yes. So I think that we have to be careful in our questions that we don't confuse someone.
Yes, absolutely. So one crisp, open question.
Yes.
That's easy for the coachee to understand.
Yes.
Apart from silence and just allowing them more space, one of my favourite responses is, and if you did know? Which, if you ask an 18-year-old, and I did this with my son when he was 18, and if you ask an 18-year-old that, they go, for God's sake, I don't know. I've told you already, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd respond like that as well.
But in a coaching room, our coachees are quite respectful of the space. They're there to do some new thinking. So actually, if you put that to them, there's a very good chance they will start to think about it more deeply. And it's the same as leaving some silence. We are leaving them because their initial... System one thinking, that first thing that comes to their head is, well, I don't know. Because in that moment, they don't know, because they haven't actually stopped to think about it.
Yeah.
So if we give them the space, or else just reframe it, and if you did know, then they go, well, okay. And then they really start to think about it.
Without rolling their eyes like
an
teenagers.
18-year-old, yeah.
Hopefully that's helpful for Miranda, and she can reflect on what's happening in the coaching room and see which approach to take going forward.
Very good. So our final question for today is from Iris, who is a locum GP and a coach, who has asked, I have a client who has cancelled a session at short notice. My contract with her states that she has to pay if she gives me less than 48 hours notice. But it feels a bit mean. What's the best thing to do?
Well, firstly, Iris, well done on having a contract in place.
It's a good start.
It's a really good start because it gives you a framework to manage this situation. Now, whether you choose to enforce that contract or not is entirely up to you. Now, I know that we are of a similar opinion that life sometimes happens and sometimes clients do cancel at the last minute. Personally, I don't know about you, Tom, but I've never actually done a late cancellation charge for a client.
Ah, well, that's where we're different because I have.
Have you?
Yes.
I didn't know this.
Yes. Although, to be fair, it has tended to be in an organisational setting where someone else is paying the bill, which makes it a little bit easier. But if someone just hasn't turned up for a session, which has happened in the past where the organisation has booked them in for so many sessions, I've been there, I've turned up on the premises and someone just hasn't shown up. And in those circumstances, definitely I would charge the organisation.
Yeah, I think for me, most of my clients have messaged me on email or perhaps called me beforehand and said, oh, I'm really sorry, something's happened. I've had someone who has had a death in the family, but equally I've had, a 9:30 appointment where at 8:30 I've had a message to say that person's really sick. And for me, if that's an ongoing relationship and they're personally paying for that session, I'm happy to move it and give them that benefit of the doubt. Now, the difference would be if someone was constantly doing it, if they took the mickey out of my good nature, then I've got that contract there to enforce should I need it? So for me, I think, Iris, it depends on your situation. If you feel uncomfortable with making that late notice charge, maybe ask why. And it's not essential. Just because it's in the contract doesn't mean you have to enforce it. But maybe an email to say, under normal circumstances, these are the terms and conditions of working with me. But on this occasion, I'll waive that fee. Or, on this occasion, I'll charge you 50%. It's entirely up to you.
Yeah, and I think it all comes back to the contracting. So I think you mentioned there about if Iris feels uncomfortable. I think feeling uncomfortable is not a reason not to charge.
No,
so
that's
just
true. That's
feeling
true.
a discomfort about having to say, I'm going to charge you. Because I think we'll all have that, but it's getting past that discomfort to actually say, well, we have a contract and the contract states that you are going to give me 48 hours notice if you're going to cancel, and if you don't, then I will charge you. So I'm going to charge you. And just taking a deep breath before you say, and I'm going to charge you. So, because it is going to be uncomfortable. But I think if we're in danger if we don't honour our contract, is saying, well, the contract's not, there's no point in having a contract. So if it's in the contract, then I think it's good practice to have that conversation and say, well, you haven't given me 48 hours notice, so I'm going to charge you for this session. Let's book the next session in. Let's be confident. So they're going to book another session. Let's book the. Now, a really good way to overcome this is to charge people up front.
Yes, which is what I do.
Which is what you do. So, which makes that conversation easier and less uncomfortable, because if they've got 6 sessions booked and they miss one, okay, well, obviously that session is now gone, but let's book your next session in. So I think it makes it an easier conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
So lots of different things to consider there.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, it's down to Iris, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
She's the master of her destiny in that situation, and she will make her own decision about it. But that's perhaps some guidance for her around what other people might do. But it's going to be down to her, what her contract states and how she feels about enforcing the contract.
Yeah.
Good. Shall we leave that one there?
Let's leave that one there. Next time on the podcast, it feels very dramatic, doesn't it? Next time, we will be exploring some more controversial elements to coaching, and we'll be posing the question, do emotions belong in the coaching room?
It's a very good question to ask, and I think one that a lot of new coaches will worry about, emotions showing up in the coaching room. So yes, that's going to be a great topic to explore next time.
Well, I shall look forward to that. For now, if you would like to send in any questions that have come to mind listening to these, we will always be happy to answer them in our next listeners' questions.
Yeah, I really enjoy this element of our podcast where we get to answer coaches' real questions about what's going on for them in their world. So yeah, keep them coming, because we're going to include this every so often. We will do a session on questions and answers, and it relies on you sending some in, so please do that.
Excellent. Well, we'll see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.